Start a new song. I'm here. Oop, wrong one. This one. Hello, everybody. It is Dracula time. I did do a test beforehand, but I am going to check again that everything is alright, because I get paranoid and don't want to do a whole stream when nobody can hear me. Okay, it's fine. We're good. Alrighty-roo. I am excited to get back to Drac. I have been doing these monthly streams for Dracula, and I have been enjoying that. It feels very streamlined. But I'm already noticing there's been quite a few entries in August, and so if it continues to be that many entries for August, I'm not going to be able to do a wait until the end of the month thing for August. So yeah, but I was able to do that for July. I don't know if, I don't know if I'm going to be able to successfully finish. I like to give myself 2 hours for my Dracula streams, and that has seemed to work in the past. But today I have about an hour and 20 minutes, and so either I'll be fine, or I'll have to pause and do the rest of it another day, or I'll have to go over my bedtime. So we will see what happens by the end of the stream. It is going to be an interesting one, that is for sure. This, looking through it as I was, copying it over, July has, well, like I said before, I haven't actually finished this book, so my favorite and least favorite parts of the book may still be to come. But from what I read in the past, July seems to contain one of my favorite parts and one of my least favorite parts, or quite possibly so far my least favorite part. And it's for a funny reason, and I'll talk about it when we get there. Yeah, I think we're ready to just begin. Nobody's talking in the stream chat, so maybe I will turn that off. Maybe I can make myself a little bigger, actually. I don't know. Okie dokie. Let us begin with July 1st. Dr. Seward's diary. 1st of July. His spiders are now becoming as great a nuisance as his flies, and today I told him that he must get rid of them. He looked very sad at this, so I said that he must clear out some of them, at all events. He cheerfully acquiesced in this, and I gave him the same time as before for reduction. He disgusted me much while with him, for when a horrid blowfly, bloated with some carrion food, buzzed into the room, he caught it, held it exultantly for a few moments between his finger and thumb, and before I knew what he was going to do, put it in his mouth and ate it. I scolded him for it, but he argued quietly that it was very good and very wholesome, that it was life, strong life, and gave life to him. This gave me an idea, or the rudiment of one. I must watch how he gets rid of his spiders. He's evidently some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a little notebook in which he is always jotting down something. Whole pages of it are filled with masses of figures, generally single numbers added up in batches, and then the totals added in batches again, as though he were focusing some account, as the auditors put it. Sometimes Seward's diary ends on, a weird note, but I guess that's to be expected of a diary. There's something very funny about the idea of, Renfield grabbing a fly out of the air, looking at it, and then Dr. Seward's like, ugh, no, and then, and then he's like, no, you should not eat flies, Renfield. That is not good. And then he's like, yum, yum. It's very wholesome and good for me. I'm sure he says it creepily. I'm sure he's like, it's very good and wholesome, you know. Where's the line? It's life, strong life, and gives life to me. I'm sure it's something like that, but just imagining it as more normal. It's like, no, this is really good. It's really wholesome. It's life, like strong life. It gives life to me, you know? That is kind of hilarious. So let's see. I don't know what it means by clear out some of them at all events. Like, it sounds like he's like, okay, I'm gonna compromise, and you can get rid of some of them, but you don't have to get rid of all of them. But then when it says at all events, like, it's sounding like you can get rid of some of them at all times, which kind of sounds like all of them. And then I'm guessing, I don't know if I want to see this, but let me look up what a blowfly is, because, blowfly. Oh yeah, it's like a normal fly. Yeah, so it just is a normal fly that was eating dead something. and he ate it too. Let's see. And yeah, pretty good idea to try to figure out how he gets rid of the spiders and if he eats them. It is kind of funny, like, because I was talking before about how Renfield is a lot like I forget what it's called, but like the old lady who swallowed a fly, or maybe it's just the lady who swallowed a fly, then she swallows a spider to get rid of the fly, and then something else to get rid of the spider, and so on and so forth. And in this case, it's like, I think it looks like, oh, the spiders eat the flies, and then I think it's like cats next, and the cats eat the spiders, but actually Renfield's just eating all of them. Alright. Oh yeah, and then it's the phrasing of, he has evidently some deep problem in his mind, and it's like, okay, yeah, like, he is in an asylum, he did just creepily eat a fly, okay. And then it's like, for he keeps a little notebook in which he's always jotting down something. And so it sounds like, only crazy people keep notebooks, he says as he jots down in his notebook. Though I'm sure that's not, you know what you say, I'm sure it is the fly situation that makes him think he has a problem in his mind. And of course, like, this makes sense too. But it's all, the one sentence is just, he must have some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a notebook. Alright, anywho, let us go on. Yes, so, well, I'll just read this as is. July 6th, Log of the Demeter. On 6th July, we finished taking in cargo, silver sand and boxes of earth. At noon, set sail. East wind, fresh. Crew, 5 hands, 2 mates, cook, and myself, captain. I think I'm gonna wait to talk about that until we get to more of them in a second. Alright. July 8th. Dr. Seward's diary. 8th July. There is a method in his madness, and the rudimentary idea in my mind is growing. It'll be a whole idea soon, and then, oh, unconscious celebration, you'll have to give the wall to your conscious brother. I keep... that weird line just threw me so much. Okay. You will have to give the wall to your conscious brother. I kept away from my friend for a few days so that I might notice if there were any change. Things remain as they were, except that he has parted with some of his pets and got a new one. He has managed to get a sparrow and has already partially tamed it. His means of taming is simple, for already the spiders have diminished. Those that do remain, however, are well fed, for he still brings in the flies by tempting them with his food. So he tempts the flies with his food, and then he gives maybe he does give the flies to the spiders. I'm not sure. Yeah, so it was birds next, not cats. I think cats must be after the birds. That definitely makes more sense. So I do like the rudimentary idea is growing, and it will soon be a whole idea. It's like, I have part of idea, and it's gonna grow up to be a whole idea. That's a fun image. But then, unconscious celebration. You'll have to give the wall to your conscious brother. What? Like, all I can think of what that means is that, like either it's saying unconscious celebration, you will have to give, like, the floor, the stage, to conscious celebration. Or it's saying, like, you'll have to give the floor to this idea that will become a whole idea. But I don't know what it means by give the wall. All I can think is that it means, like, give the stage. And then it's funny that he calls Renfield his friend. It's like, he's your patient, man. He's not your friend. And it could be potentially, like, it's kind of sweet and endearing that he uses that phrase, but it's also like, that could be a problem. That could be a problematic way to be thinking about this situation. I'm curious, because I don't know how Renfield's story ends. I'm kind of curious if Renfield eats Seward, or gives Seward over to Dracula to eat. That would be a kind of, like, cool and spooky end to, like, we have the flies, the spiders eat the flies, the sparrows eat the spiders, the cats eat the sparrows, and then so on and so forth. And then I eat you. that could be a good and spooky progression. Also, it's also kind of funny that, like, I don't know exactly how asylums work today, let alone back then, but it's kind of interesting that he has enough freedom that he can get all these pets, that he can bring in all these creatures. And, like, insects are gonna get in no matter what. Insects and you know, spiders and stuff, probably gonna get in even if you don't want them to. But a sparrow, like, you need to have access to the window. You need to have access to things to be able to do that. So they're not, you know, restricting his, like, outside time or bolting his window or anything like that, which is kind of interesting, because I think the image we usually get for asylums during this time is, like, you're in a straitjacket and basically in a prison cell, and that's definitely not what's going on here. And, like, I guess it seems tame enough, because I was gonna say, like, should he be concerned? Should he be bolting the window? But I guess, like, him eating a fly isn't enough to say that there's a problem. It's just like, it's a little weird. and that's about it. I used that phrase in the first episode, I think. And I guess that's kind of the motto of the characters in Dracula. That all the vampiric stuff that's going on that is very much threatening their lives or other people's lives, everyone in this book is just like, that's a little weird. And granted, if I didn't know about vampire lore, I probably would react the same way. Alright. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so in this little note, the people at Dracula Daily put all of this here, and I included July 6th, and I might reread it, but I decided to put it in the proper time as well in my reading of it. Alright. July 18th. Log of the Demeter. Varna to Whitby. Written 18th July. Things so strange happening that I shall keep accurate note henceforth till we land. On 6th July, we finished taking in cargo. Silver sand and boxes of earth. At noon set sail. East wind. Fresh. Crew, 5 hands. 2 mates. Cook and myself. Captain. On 11th July, at dawn, entered Bosphorus. Boarded by Turkish customs officers. Bakshish. All correct. Underway at 4 p.m. On 12th July, through Dardanelles. More customs officers and flag boat of guarding squadron. Bakshish again. Work of officers thorough but quick. Want us off soon. At dark, passed into archipelago. On 13th July, past Cape Matapan. Crew dissatisfied about something. Seemed scared, but would not speak out. On 14th July, was somewhat anxious about crew. Men all steady fellows who sailed with me before. Mates could not make out what was wrong. They only told him there was something, and crossed themselves. Mate lost temper with one of them that day and struck him. Expected fierce quarrel, but all was quiet. On 16th July, mate reported in the morning that one of the crew, Petrovsky, was missing. Could not account for it. Took larboard watch 8 bells last night. Was relieved by Abramov, but did not go to bunk. Men more downcast than ever. All said they expected something of the kind, but would not say more than there was something abroad. Mate getting very impatient with them. Feared some trouble ahead. On 17th July, yesterday, one of the men, Olgarin, came to my cabin, and, in an awestruck way, confided to me that he thought there was a strange man aboard the ship. He said that in his watch he had been sheltering behind the deck-house. There was a rainstorm when he saw a tall, thin man, who was not like any of the crew, come up the companionway and go along the deck forward and disappear. I followed cautiously. When he got to bows, found no one, and the hatchways were all closed. He was in a panic of superstitious fear, and I'm afraid that panic may spread. To allay it, I shall today search entire ship carefully from stem to stern. Later in the day, I got together the whole crew and told them, as they evidently thought there was someone on the ship, we would search from stem to stern. First mate, angry, said it was folly, and to yield to such foolish ideas would demoralize the men. Said he would engage to keep them out of trouble with a handspike. I let him take the helm, while the rest began thorough search, all keeping abreast with lanterns. We left no corner unsearched, as there were only the big wooden boxes, and there were no odd corners where men could hide. Men much relieved when search over, and went back to work cheerfully. First mate scowled, but said nothing. I think I was supposed to give him an accent, but I wasn't sure which one to give, so I just didn't. All right, so this is the thing I was referring to when I said that the July stuff contained one of my favorite parts. That I do really like this. This is like such a cool horror story within a horror story. Like, you can see the progression of things. You can see, like, oh yeah, things seem fine, to things seem a little off, to things are not fine. And it's really cool because you wouldn't think that something so simple, right? Like, each line is just like very, very simple, and it's just like, oh, here's the crew, and like we went through customs and stuff like that. But it does end up being really interesting, and yeah, and like it has enough, I don't know how to describe it exactly, why it works. I don't know if it has to do with like the unknown and the imagination, that enough is left to the unknown, enough is left to the imagination that your mind can fill in the gaps, or if it's that like you know what's coming and they don't. I don't know, it just works super well. I don't know what baksheesh is. Let me look that up. In parts of Asia and North Africa, a small sum of money given as a tip, bribe, or charitable donation. The children smile back and ask for baksheesh. Okay, so he's like saying he had to bribe them. Boarded by Turkish customs officers, bakshish. All correct. Yeah, so I guess it's like, okay, we got boarded, I bribed them, and they said it was all correct, I think. I guess it could be like, you know, just, I paid them, or I gave them, what was it all? A tip, you know, a tip or charitable donation. So it could be, you know, like, oh, I gave him a tip. But it feels like it would be boarded by British custom officers, all correct, bakshish. That feels like more of a tip. But the fact that it came for before all correct, it feels like he bribed him. I wonder if I want to see. Okay, so Bosphorus. Okay. Yeah, so that's oh, interesting. It looks like it's right in Istanbul. It is right. It's like on this. Looks like it's on this bridge between, I think, Bulgaria and Turkey. I think is what it's looking like. Interesting. Okay, so that's Bosphorus, and then where's Dardanelles? Dardanelles. Okay, so it seems to be, can I, maybe I can look it up on the, yeah, I should just look it up on the actual computer. Okay, hang on a second. I guess I can just show the Google map. So this one, yeah, it's this one. Oh, I need to make it bigger. Can I? Yeah. Yeah, so Bosphorus is right here. And then Dardanelles is right here. So it's like here next to Istanbul, and then go down here to Dardanelles. All right. Go back to Drac. All right. Was there any? Oh, nope, there was more. Okay. So wait. So go back. So Cape Matapan is next. Dardanelles to Cape Matapan. Okay, so this is saying here's Dardanelles down to Cape Tenero, but I'm assuming because I did type in Cape Matapan that is correct. Yeah, so we went from over here down to here, down to here. So this is a much, much longer journey. So how long did that take? No, that took a day. So Bosphorus to Dardanelles took a day, and then Dardanelles to Cape Matapan took a day. I can look up if there's. Whoa, that is more confusing. Yeah, that's not helping me. I think the Google map was fine. All right, so go back to Drac. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I do think this is cool because it will say in the comment if I open up the comments. It comes on August 8th. Okay, so August 8th is when Mina reads the reads the newspaper article that includes this. But anyways, all that to say, I was just gonna say, I do think it's really fun to read this in actual chronological order instead of just the newspaper article, and so you see it happening in real time. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, that we just saw Drac with the boxes of Earth, right? That we just saw. Jonathan was like, they're boxing up Earth. Wonder what they're doing with that. And now we see that they have it. Silver sand is kind of a cool image, and I wonder what that's about. So we have 9 people on the ship. Yeah, and so we have everything's like kind of fine, but maybe they have to bribe some people. And then it's just like, the crew's getting a little antsy. What are they getting antsy about? They're not going to tell me. And you're already like, ooh, what's this about? And then the captain's like, knows they're all steady, but they're all freaking out about something. And even the first mate won't say what's wrong. They only told him there was something. Well, I guess he doesn't think there's something wrong. He's trying to figure it out. And I do love there's something. We once again have returned to people are crossing themselves. Seems like there's an issue here that you need to pay attention to. But the nice thing about the captain here is he does pay attention to it. He's like, I'm a little anxious about the crew. I'm a little anxious about what's going on here. Like, these are steady people. What are they freaking out about? I think we should figure it out. Good on the captain. And then the first mate slaps one of them around. Which is probably why they're not telling you. Yep, and then somebody goes missing, so we have the action, keeps going. We go from everything's normal to, people are antsy to they won't tell us what's wrong. It's just something. And then we have somebody's gone missing. Very, very good, very suspenseful progression there. And then we have, again, the something. That's really fun. I guess that really plays into the fear of the unknown thing I was talking about before, of like, don't know what it is, just know it's something. Well, I think they know what it is. They're just not telling them. And so it's like, something out there. And then somebody comes up and actually tells him the theory of what's going on, or at least part of what's going on, a little more concretely. It's interesting. He's described as a tall, thin man, so he's not described like a monster. He's just a tall, thin man. I don't know what the companionway is. I'm guessing it's like a crew quarters type of thing. I guess I could try and look it up. Oh. In the architecture of a ship, a companion or a companionway is a raised and windowed hatchway in the ship's deck with a ladder leading below. Interesting. Okay. Cool. Alright, so not like specific crew quarters, just a specific way to get around, basically. And then I do, again, he's a good captain, because he's like, oh, like, I'm afraid the panic might spread. Like, he's not scolding him for panicking or slapping him around for panicking. He's just saying, I don't want everybody to freak out, because that's going to be a problem. And so I'm going to try to assuage his fears. I'm going to do something about it. He's not just saying, there's nothing to worry about. He's like, I'm actually going to take measures to assuage the fears, which I think is great. Yep, and then addresses everybody. And then the first mate's like, no, like, don't tell them about it. Like, you're gonna make everything worse, which I don't think so, especially because I know it's real. And then handspike, I'm assuming, is a weapon. Okay, handspike. Wooden rod with an iron tip used as a lever on board ship and by artillery soldiers. Okay. Yeah, keep them out of trouble with a handspike. So he's like poking at them. Loving the captain, not loving the first mate's methods. I do find it's interesting that he says there were no odd corners for a man to hide, especially after there were only the big wooden boxes. That feels like those do inherently give odd corners for the man to hide. First of all, like, you know, you can just hide around the boxes. And second of all, you should know that you can hide in the boxes, even if you don't know about vampires and Earth and stuff like that. You should be able to put together somebody could dig into the dirt. And then the men are much relieved, like, oh, okay, nothing's wrong. And then the first mate's just grumpy. By the way, I have watched the movie The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I don't know, let me know if you would be interested in, like, me doing some sort of, like, review or reaction to it, because that could be fun. But there are things I liked about it and things that I didn't like about it. But I do feel like after watching that movie that this section of the book does read differently. And, like, having those images from the movie as opposed to just whatever my brain comes up with. And of course there's positives and negatives to that, but I just think it's interesting to reread this after watching the movie. Alright. Let us go on. July 19th. Dr. Seward's diary. 19th July. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor, and a very, very great favor. Okay, let me redo this. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I came in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor, a very, very great favor. And as he spoke, he fawned on me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said with some sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, a kitten, a nice little sleek, playful kitten that I can play with and teach and feed and feed and feed. I was not unprepared for this request, for I had noticed how his pets went on increasing in size and vivacity, but I did not care that his pretty family of tame sparrows should be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and the spiders, so I said I would see about it, and asked him if he would not rather have a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed him as he answered, "Oh, yes, I would like a cat. I only asked for a kitten, lest you should refuse me a cat. No one would refuse me a kitten, would they?" I shook my head and said that at present I feared it would not be possible, but that I would see about it. His face fell, and I could see a warning of danger in it, for there was a sudden fierce sidelong look which meant killing. The man is an undeveloped homicidal maniac. I shall test him with his present craving and see how it will work out, and then I shall know more. 10 p.m. I visited him again, and found him sitting in a corner, brooding. I came in, he threw himself on his knees before me and implored me to let him have a cat, that his salvation depended on it. was firm, however, and told him that he could not have it, whereupon he went without a word and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the morning, early. I don't know if my creepy voice is accurate, but I just thought that was fun. I just thought it was fun to voice him like that. But yeah, so now we get on to the cats. Let's see. So yeah, again, kind of a both fun and scary image of like him just running up to Seward and being like, I want you to do me a favor, a really, really big favor. And then fawned on me like a dog is quite the image as well. Very, very evocative. Some sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, also very evocative. I mean, even Renfield's words are very evocative in and of themselves, too. That he's not just saying, I want a kitten. It's like nice, little, sleek, playful, like all the adjectives really give off a vibe, and then play with and teach and feed and feed and feed. There's a great cadence to that where it's like, something's wrong. Something's going on here. This is spooky. And then he's like, I was not unprepared. I thought he probably asked for this. I don't know if he knew that he was going to ask for a kitten, but it's kind of funny that, like, he sees this happen and it reads like he's like, yeah, I thought you might ask for that. And then it's like, I don't know how to feel about the fact that Seward's like, yeah, I didn't care that, the sparrows are going to be wiped out just like the flies, so whatever, like, get a cat. Because, like, it feels like, I don't know, and we're going to talk about the homicidal maniac stuff in a second, but it's like, if you know that he's an undeveloped homicidal maniac, maybe don't let him kill? Like, I don't know what the proper treatment is, and maybe it's better to let him kill the sparrows so he's not going out killing people, but again, he's like, I don't know, I have so many feelings, because he's not, as I was going to say, he's in an asylum, so presumably they can watch him and make sure that he doesn't actually, like, murder any human beings. At the same time, homeboy got a gaggle of sparrows, so he has a level of freedom. And I don't know how Renfield's story ends. I don't think I think when we are coming upon, I think it was August that I haven't read past. That's as far as I got, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think it's August. And so we are coming upon the stuff that I haven't read soon. So I think that I left off in the same, still within the this animal eats this animal eats this animal. I think I was still in that cycle when I haven't read past that, I believe. But I'm assuming that, like, he gets out, he kills someone, both. Dracula comes in and frees him. Dracula kills him, like, there's a lot of different options, but him breaking out is very likely. And so it feels like, if that is the case, and if Dracula didn't break him out, and granted, maybe he has vampiric strength of his own, and that's how he gets out. But yeah, so basically I don't think he should have this much freedom, is the point. It's like, if you know that this man is an undeveloped homicidal maniac, because before it just sounded like he knows he's not quite right in the head, and I don't remember if he said something about him being an undeveloped homicidal maniac earlier in the book, and I just forgot, but I don't remember him saying that. And so it just seems like he's here because he's not quite right. And, like, yeah, having pet spiders and flies is fine, and that doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. And even if something is wrong with you, like, that's not a big deal. And stuff like that. And so I could see why he wouldn't be doing anything about it. He wouldn't be bolting down the windows or anything. But if you know he's an undeveloped homicidal maniac, and he probably would kill a human being given the chance, maybe don't let him have window access. Maybe don't let him have access to a gaggle of sparrows. What is what is the actual term for let's see, flock of sparrows called? A host. That is spookier than I thought. So he has a whole host of I guess that works actually now that I'm saying it. He has a whole host of sparrows. And maybe don't let him do that. Maybe don't let him have the access to an open window. Maybe don't let him have a whole host of sparrows. Maybe don't give him a cat. Maybe don't let him kill the sparrows. Like, all these things feel like if you know he's an undeveloped homicidal maniac, it's not going in a good direction, you should notice and maybe do something about it. Seward very much seems like the person who's like, yes, I'm just here in the room to observe. I don't make any judgments for good or ill. I'm just gonna watch. It kind of seems like that's what's going on here. But anyways. And then kind of interesting that it's like why he wouldn't ask for a cat, and he thinks that it would work better to ask for a kitten. And I don't know how things worked back then, and maybe just has something to do with that. But now I don't feel like that there's a particular difference. I don't feel like it would be easier to get a kitten than a cat, or if you asked for a kitten that someone would be more likely to give it to you. And like, I don't know, it kind of depends on why you want it. And maybe Seward doesn't care. But like if a little kid asks for a kitten or asks for a cat, I feel like you're going to be more likely to give him a cat, because a kitten like needs to be potty trained and needs to be taken care of in a different way. And a cat is, you know, more developed and easier to care for. And so that actually feels like a better ask than a kitten. So I'm curious about that. Yeah, so his face fell. I could see a warning of danger in it. There's a sudden fierce sidelong look, which meant killing. Maybe it's just the phrasing, because like we do say, you know, he gave me a murderous look, and I think that's what it means there, and so that would sound natural to me. We're just saying a look that meant killing, and it's like, that felt like a jump. It's like, yeah, that specific look, it means I want burgers. You know, that look, it means killing. And like, again, if as long as I'm remembering correctly, he hasn't talked about him, you know, killing before other than eating the fly. And so it seems like quite the thing for a look to say. And so then we come to this: the man is an undeveloped homicidal maniac. Quite the statement to throw out there. And maybe, I think that you know what, I think, let's grab the book off the shelf. Because I think the Dr. Seward stuff is all in one spot in the actual book. Okay, so that's Demeter. That's Mina. Okay, so here's Seward. Okay. Yeah, alright. If I did correctly find the beginning of it, it doesn't say he's a homicidal maniac at the beginning. Here's a different one. Okay, this looks like the beginning. Okay, so I'll read this. R.M. Renfield, age 59. He's much older than I realized he was. Sanguine temperament, great physical strength, morbidly excitable, periods of gloom ending in some fixed idea which I cannot make out. I presume that the sanguine temperament itself and the disturbing influence end in a mentally accomplished finish. A possibly dangerous man, probably dangerous if unselfish. In selfish men, caution is... Okay, so I remember that. Yeah, so he knows he's possibly dangerous, but it doesn't say that he's a homicidal maniac. So, like, maybe this is something that he figured out, but it doesn't take us on that journey. It doesn't show us, oh yes, I'm realizing, the light bulb went off. He's an undeveloped homicidal maniac. And so it just seems like a really weird thing to throw out there, especially when he hasn't seemed to be very cautious. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, flies. It's a little weird. And then it's like, yeah, sure, whatever, you can have a cat. I don't care if the sparrows die. Like, he's very unperturbed. And, and he talked about before of, like, his redeeming quality is his love of animals. And it's like, I don't know if he loves them, man. And so it's just like, yeah, it's just quite the statement to throw out with no build-up. And, like, we can probably put that together because we know that the book is about vampires and there's something wacky going on here. But for him, after, like, seeming so nice about him and not having precautions and everything, quite the statement to throw out there. And then I shall test him with his present craving and see how it work out, and then I shall know more. Kind of fair, like, okay, he needs to test the limits and stuff like that, but it also kind of sounds like, let's see if he murders. And it's like, maybe let's not test that. Yep, and then he does test him, he switches to, he can't have it. And then he just sits in the corner eating his fingers. Very evocative imagery for sure. Oh yeah, okay, so we continue on the next day. Alright. July 20th, Dr. Seward's diary. 20th July. Visited Renfield very early, before the attendant went his rounds. Found him up and humming a tune. Spreading out his sugar, which he had saved in the window, was manifestly beginning his fly-catching again, and beginning it cheerfully and with a good grace. I looked round for his birds, and, not seeing them, asked him where they were. He replied, without turning round, that they had all flown away. There were a few feathers about the room, and on his pillow a drop of blood. I said nothing, but went and told the keeper to report to me if there were anything odd about him during the day. We'll come back to that, I think. Well, oh yeah, this is kind of long. No, we won't. We'll talk about it. The man is odd. Like, what do you mean, is there anything odd? I guess it's just saying, like, okay, he has a normal oddness. Is there anything outside of his normal oddness to be aware of? But it just feels like everything about this is odd, Dr. Seward. What do you mean, tell you if something's odd? And then, so I think I was saying I wasn't sure if the animals were eating each other, if he was eating them. And this is definitely a tick in the column of he's eating them. And so I don't really know. Yeah, I don't really know what he needs the cat for if he's eating the sparrows. I'm not sure. But having eaten them seems like it improved his mood. And so, like, maybe, like, I do know, like, that he's a servant of Dracula in some way. And I think I mostly know it from, like, the Renfield trailer. I haven't actually watched the movie. So I know he's a servant of Dracula. So I don't know if, like, he was feeling antsy because he needs blood. And I don't know why he would particularly need cat blood. Yeah, I'm not sure. And then it is interesting that the cycle continues. It doesn't just go bigger and bigger and then, like, we're progressing and that's it. Like, we go back to the beginning, or maybe he had to because he didn't get the cat. 11 a.m. The attendant has just been to me to say that Renfield has been very sick and has disgorged a whole lot of feathers. My belief is, Doctor, he said, that he's eaten his birds, and that he just took and ate them raw. Yep, exactly. 11 p.m. Interesting. It's all 11. Feels spooky. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make him sleep, even him sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. The thought that has been buzzing about my brain lately is complete, and the theory proved. My homicidal maniac is of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him, and call him a zoophagous, life-eating maniac. What he desires is to absorb as many lives as he can, and he has laid himself out to achieve it in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider, and many spiders to one bird, and then wanted a cat to eat the many birds. What would have been his later steps? It would almost be worthwhile to complete the experiment. It might be done if there were only a sufficient cause. Men sneered at vivisection, and yet look at its results today. Why not advance science in its most difficult and vital aspect, the knowledge of the brain? Had I even the secret of one such mind, did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic, I might advance my own branch of science to a pitch compared with which Burton Sanderson's physiology of or Ferrier's brain knowledge would be as nothing. If only there were sufficient cause. I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn the scale with me, for may not I too be of an exceptional grain, congenitally? How well the man reasoned. Lunatics always do within their own scope. I wonder at how many lives he values a man, or if it only one. He has closed the account most accurately, and today begun a new record. How many of us begin a new record with each day of our lives? To me it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. So it will be until the great recorder sums me up and closes my ledger account with a balance to profit or loss. Oh, Lucy, Lucy, I cannot be angry with you, nor can I be angry with my friend whose happiness is yours, but I must only wait on hopeless and work. If I only could have as strong a cause as my poor mad friend there, good, unselfish cause to make me work, that would indeed be happiness. That would be indeed happiness. Okay, there were a couple things to look up. So I think zoophagous, and I guess he answered it, but I still want to see what the internet says. It's saying that it's a genus of fungi. That's not really what I was looking for. Okay, well, I didn't use the little, I'm not sure what that's called. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Adjective, rare, of an animal feeding on other animals. Isn't that just a carnivore? Yeah, the meaning of zoophagous is feeding on animals, carnivorous. I shall have to invent a new classification for him. A carnivore. I mean, I guess it is, like humans are omnivores, so that is a little weird, but it's weird for him to be like, I need a totally new word for this weird little man. And then it's like, he's a carnivore. And it's like, not exactly new or all that weird. But yeah, okay, so I have read this before, but I did forget. So this answers my questions, that it's both, that that is interesting, that it's like, okay, I want a bunch of flies, and I want a bunch of flies, and then have the spiders eat all the flies. Okay, so now all the flies are inside one spider. Okay, now the sparrow eats that, so now all the flies and the spider or maybe multiple spiders, are inside the sparrow. And so now all the sparrows are inside the cat. But he didn't get the cat, so he just ate the sparrows. So it wasn't as many lives as he wanted. That is interesting, and it's like, there is like a vampiricness to it, but it's not the same. And I'm very curious how it relates to Dracula and being a vampire, but like, vampires need blood to survive, and as far as I know, they don't need like a bunch at once, or they don't need this like cumulative multiple lives situation here. I don't know if Renfield is like trying to be a vampire or trying to act like a vampire, but he isn't one, and so it's coming out wrong. Or, you know, if, because he says his salvation depends on it, if, like, it does have something to do with Dracula wants him to do this, or maybe that could be interesting if it's that Dracula eats him, that Dracula, like, subscribes to this, and it's like, yes, Renfield, eat as many lives as you can, and then I eat you, and consume all those lives. I'm not sure. And then when Seward asks, you know, how many lives does he consider a man, that's the right question. You are asking the right questions there. Is he and you know, what would make a man multiple lives? Would it be, you know, the food that a man eats, or would, like, a man who's a murderer be worth multiple lives or something like that? Or is it just, is a man just one life? That is very interesting. But there is something to be said about the fact that if he wanted to eat a person, then it feels like he would be feeding the sparrows to a person, not eating them himself. And then my homicidal maniac. Oh, how could you do my homicidal maniac? My homicidal maniac. And then I think he's saying, like, he kind of does want to give him the cat to see what happens, but there's, like, no cause for it, which I don't really get, because, like, isn't this in and of itself the cause? Oh, yeah, okay, I don't know if I want to know what vivisection means. I think it's, like, it sounds like dissection, kind of. I guess, because viv means alive, I guess it's saying dissecting someone while they're alive. Yep. The practice of performing operations on live animals for the purpose of experimentation or scientific research, used only by people who are opposed to such work. Ruthlessly sharp and detailed criticism or analysis. Yeah, analysis. Okay, interesting that it's only used by people who oppose it, so it's like an insulting term. But yeah, so that I was correct. It's dissection while alive. Which is a fair thing to sneer at, I think. So this is telling that he's like, like, we sneered at people dissecting creatures while they're still alive, but look, wasn't it great? I can do great things, much like it. And it's like, it makes me concerned. And that makes me think he's gonna, you know, vivisect Renfield's brain. Oh yeah, so I was gonna look up Burton Sanderson's, which is too much like Brandon Sanderson. Burton Sanderson. Ah, no. There. Okay. Okay, so his physiology. I don't want his biography. I just want to know about his work. What? The first thing that comes up is he was the first to suggest the central idea of in vitro fertilization. Wow, that's wild if that's the case. Ranging from the recording of blood pressure to the electromotive phenomena associated with muscular contraction and the reactions of certain plant fibers. So, lots of different sciencey stuff. Okay, so what does this say? Was he the guy who's discovered penicillin? I'm getting a lot of answers here. A lot of mixed answers. In 1871, Sanderson reported that penicillin inhibited the growth of bacteria, an observation that placed him amongst the forerunners of Alexander Fleming. Let's see. Sanderson's appointment was initially controversial, partly because the university spent a large amount of money on his resources, and partially because such a position entailed experimentation on animals, so that's the vivisection. However, in the same year, he was awarded the Royal Medal by the Royal Society in recognition of his research into the electrical phenomena exhibited by plants, the relations of minute organisms to disease, and of his services to pathology and physiology. Interesting. Well, I don't want to go too far into this. Let's quick, Farrier, though that could be Ferrier. Okay, let's hope this is the right Farrier. Okay, it does say neurologist and psychologist. That's sounding right. Conducted experiments on the brains of animals such as monkeys. Became the first scientist to be prosecuted under the Cruelty to Animals Act, which had been enacted following a major public debate over vivisection. So this is exactly what he's talking about. Okay, yeah, and then Functions of the Brain is a book that, or it's a book he published. Okay, well. Everything's either too short or too long. Yeah, so it seems to be saying, like, he electrically stimulated the brains of many species and mapped areas of the cortex. So I guess it's maybe, I don't know for sure, but maybe it's saying, like, he's the first one to map out, like, the temporal lobe and frontal lobe and stuff like that. So that's interesting. So it's that especially goes along with what I was saying about, like, what Seward is saying is concerning. And so it's like, okay, we sneered at vivisection, but, I could advance science compared with these two people, one of which was, prosecuted for being cruel to animals. And so it seems like Seward doesn't care for that. And that was, if I still have it up, it did say that it was in 1876. Which, if I remember correctly, is before this book came out. It doesn't give me the... Come on. Okay, so 1876 and Dracula. It was published 1897. Yeah, so it was before Dracula came out. So this was something that Bram Stoker would be able to know about. And it was... Yeah. Okay, so basically, this guy, did these experiments on animals. And so that seems to be saying that either Seward doesn't really care about these animals, which he basically flat out stated, could also be saying he doesn't care about Renfield. It could be that he is willing to experiment on Renfield and doesn't really care as long as it makes a name for himself in science, which is certainly concerning. And then how well the man responded, lunatics always do within their own scope. Yeah, they have their own, they respond well within how they think about the world. That's cool. And then, I really like that. And then he kept his record. How many of us begin a new record with each day of our lives? Well, yeah, but we're not keeping track of all the animals we're killing. So, it's kind of a different thing, Seward. And then yesterday, my whole life ended with my new hope, and that truly I began a new record. Placing a lot of hope on this one lunatic, Seward. And so it will be until the Great Recorder sums me up and closes my ledger account with a balance of profit or loss. I'm guessing he's talking about God, and so he goes from being like, Renfield was my hope and everything to me, and I, my life ended with my new hope, and I began a new record, and then it's like, I don't know when he says, so it will be, if he means, that's what every day will be, until I die. I do like that image, though, of, the Great Recorder closes my ledger account. That is cool. And then we jump to Lucy. Lucy has nothing to do with this. And then he's like, we're talking about Renfield, we're talking about vivisection, we're talking about God, we're talking about Lucy. We're jumping all over the place. And then, the fact that he jumps to that and is like, I can't be angry with you, seems like maybe he is. And then, he's throwing himself into his work, as many often do. Okay, that's understandable. And also, if I'm correct, that is a little concerning that he's fine with vivisection and this guy who is cruel to animals. Good thing you didn't pick him, Lucy. He's not the guy for you. And then it's kind of cool but kind of spooky that he seems to admire Renfield, because he was talking about before about how he's unselfish. And so he's saying, he has this unselfish cause, and I wish I could have something like that. But it's okay, but he's, not your friend, and he's killing innocent animals and might kill innocent people, so maybe not the person to be jealous of and looking up to. Oh, goodness. Alright. July 22nd. Log of the Demeter. 22nd July. Rough weather last 3 days. And all hands busy with sails. No time to be frightened. Men seem to have forgotten their dread. Made cheerful again, and all on good terms. Praised men for work in bad weather. Past Gibraltar and out through straits. All well. All right, time to look up where Gibraltar is comparatively. Okay, so Cape Matapan to Gibraltar. Okay. Yeah, so the Cape is here, and then it's all the way over here. So you have to go past Italy and go all the way to Spain to get there. So definitely a longer one. Makes sense that it was multiple days, because when was the last one? Wait, no, that's... Yeah, so 17 to the 22nd. So 5 days, is that? I think. And then, so 5 days, and then rough weather in the 3. Yeah, so we go back into high spirits, and we feel, the dread coming of but not everything's okay, even if it seems that way. And now 2 days later, July 24th, Lock of the Demeter, 24th July. There seems some doom over this ship, already a hand short, entering on the Bay of Biscay with wild weather ahead. And yet, last night, another man lost, disappeared. Like the first, he came off his watch and was not seen again. Men all in a panic of fear. sent a round robin, asking to have double watch, as they fear to be alone. Made angry. In fear there will be some trouble, as either he or the men will do some violence. Okay, so Bay of Biscay. Gibraltar to Bay of Biscay. Biscay? It didn't give me a map this time. Oh, perfect. Okay, so, Google didn't give me an image, but, well, I think, let's see. Can I just make you bigger? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So Google Maps didn't give me an image, but Google gave me an image. Yeah, so here's Gibraltar down here, and then they went all the way around Spain up to the Bay of Biscay here. I don't know why their symbols are hearts. But yeah, so all the way around up to here, and that took 2 days. Okay. Oops. Back. All right. So everything seems fine, and then we find that things are not, in fact, fine, and then another man has disappeared. This is when you really need to start being worried. People are disappearing. A very fair reason to be afraid. I think they did do that in the movie, that they had people keeping watch and they're getting picked off for sure. And it's kind of funny that the first mate is just like, like he feels better when everybody's okay. And then people are afraid, justifiably, because people are disappearing. And then the mate's just like mad about it. He's just mad when people are panicking. And then the captain's afraid that either he or the men will do some violence. Valid fear. This is the most level-headed man we have met so far in this book. That is kind of funny that, like, I was complaining the whole time about how Jonathan is not recognizing the warning signs, and like I'm talking about Dr. Seward and the complications and issues with his attitude. But here the captain's like, okay, like, I need to take this seriously. I need to search the ship. Even if there's nothing, I need to dispel the panic. And then, you know, he's justifiably like, I'm a little nervous that some violence is going to break out. That's going to be a problem in my ship. And he's just trying to do a good job. And so it is sad that the captain, is the most level-headed guy, and we already know he's dead from the newspaper clipping, because you hear, if you read it in chronological order, if I remember correctly, you hear that there's a skeleton tied to the mast of a ship. And so that's the first thing you hear, and so you know that the captain, I mean, I don't know if you know it's the captain, but you know that somebody died, on this ship. And so you know that the most level-headed guy is gonna die when he gets introduced. Alright. Okay, so... Alright. So these last 3 are super short, because they're all Demeter logs. It is getting close to my bedtime, but I think we'll be okay. I don't think this is going to be too much over my bedtime. However, I am out of water, so I'll put on some tunes, and then grab some water and come back. Okay, so this chapter right here is the one that is probably my least favorite chapter that I've encountered. And it's quite simply because of an accent. So I don't know if I've talked about this, but basically how I've read the book so far is that I how many years have I been trying to do this and failing? So I think, like, the first year I just read from Dracula Daily, and then I didn't finish. And then the second year I started from Dracula Daily, and then I switched to an audiobook of just the actual chronological Dracula. And then if either in that same year or the third year, I think it was the third year, a friend of mine posted a link to an audio version of Dracula Daily. It's in order, but it's recorded audio. So I've tried all these versions, and so the first time I heard this part was in the audiobook in chronological order. And so when I heard this, I thought that the voice actress for Mina was, like, doing a terrible job, or suddenly, like, I couldn't understand her. And so I was like, okay, I need to actually open my book and read this because, like, something went wrong there. And then it was just this accent that isn't understandable, that you can't understand it if you read it just like your preview here, you probably already can't understand it just looking at it. You can't understand it hearing it out loud. And so I can tell you right now, this is going to sound terrible. I don't know what accent this is, and whatever accent it is, I assure you I do not mean to be insulting in however I do it, however I voice this accent. It is just that I do not know what accent this is, and I don't understand what is being said. But an accent is gonna have to come out of my mouth, even though I don't know what it's supposed to sound like, because it is written that way. And so I will tell you right now that, like, people have mixed feelings about, like, writing out an accent in a book, and I feel like the vast majority of people lean towards don't write it out. And it's stuff like this that I think is what makes people lean towards don't write an accent out. Because, like I have just said, I do not understand what is being said in this part of this book. And we can get there, and either I'm going to, like, look at the words and try to decipher it, or I'm just going to skip past it and be like, no notes, I don't know what's happening. But yeah, so, like, that's not what you want from your book. And of course, if that is the intention, if that is why you're including the accent, great job, it works. If you want your readers to understand what's being said, don't include one that is as thick, don't, write it down as thick as this. Just say, he had this kind of accent, and move on. But anywho, with my pre-vent, done, let's try and begin. And now I'm remembering, I don't even remember Mina's voice. But let's try this. Alright, July 24th, Mina Murray's journal. 24th July, Whitby. Lucy met me at the station, looking sweeter and lovelier than ever, and we drove up to the house at the Crescent in which they have rooms. This is a lovely place. Doesn't every house have rooms? It's like, they have, I guess it's saying rooms to stay in, but it's like, oh, this is an inn with rooms, but it's just like, wow, like, we went to a house, it had rooms. Yeah. Alright, this is a lovely place. The little river, the Esk, runs through a deep valley, which broadens out as it comes near the harbor. A great viaduct runs across, with high piers, through which the view seems somehow further away than it really is. The valley is beautifully green, and it is so steep that when you are on the highland, on either side, you look right across it, unless you are near enough to see down. Okay, I need to reread that, because I don't have a clear picture from that. Okay, so the river, it's a deep valley, broadens, and it comes near the harbor. Great viaduct runs across, with high piers. Okay, so it's just a valley. It's a valley, steep walls you can see across. Okay. The houses of the old town, the side away from us, are all red-roofed and seem piled up on one and piled up over the other anyhow, like the pictures we see of Nuremberg. Right over the town is the ruin of Whitby Abbey, which was sacked by the Danes, and which is the scene of part of Marmion, where the girl was built up in the wall. Okay, she just gave me a lot of things to look up. So, hang on, let's see while I have maps on this computer, if I can look up the Esk. River. Well, yeah, those are pictures of the river. Is that okay? So what? Let's get back over here. Okay, it's not saying. Oh, Whitby Alley is the next thing. Okay. Oh. Okay. Interesting. I guess I'll just like show you. I don't know. Because I am seeing the red roofed houses. But yeah, so like you can see right here if that's correct. Like yeah, those are the red roofed houses, but that doesn't seem like a really high valley. And then here's like the course of the river and stuff. But then we've got like all sorts of other pictures that seem unrelated. So I can't really tell if I'm getting the right image or not. And then let's see. So Whitby Abbey. Ooh, that's pretty. There's pictures. And they all look the same, so I have confidence that it is correct. That's nice and spooky. That's great for a vampire story. Yeah, so there's the ruins of Whitby Abbey. Seem part of Marmion. Okay. I'm getting pictures. I'm getting like medieval pictures of like hellfire and destruction. And I'm not sure if this is correct. And then we have a poem. Okay, let's go out of images. Okay, Marmion poem. I think that is... Okay, go back. Okay, so she says, Marmion where the girl was built in the wall. So... Yep. Okay, so this is correct. It is the poem. Let's see how long the poem is. Maybe I'll read it. If it's not that long. Oh, okay. Oh, it's long. I do think I'll have to do a different stream for this, but I'll keep it on the computer. Oh my goodness. This is like a book. This is like Dante's Inferno, not just a little poem. Okay. Dang. Wow. That's crazy. Okie dokie. Okay, so... Alright. Go back. It is most noble ruin, of immense size, and full of beautiful and romantic bits. There's a legend that a white lady is seen in one of the windows. Between it and the town, there's another church, the parish one, round which is a big graveyard, all full of tombstones. This is, to my mind, the nicest spot in Whitby, for it lies right over the town, and it has a full view of the harbour, and all up the bay to where the headland called Kettleness stretches out into the sea. She keeps giving me more stuff to look up. I mean, it is helpful to look it up because now I have like actual pictures, and they're not what I was originally thinking. Okay, wait, go back. Oh, so Kettleness. So it's like cliffs. It's, again, the pictures are quite different. But, it's a lot of cliffs. And fossils. Well, Kettleness Dracula is, ooh, that's a cool image. Nah, it's just giving me Dracula images, not the actual place when I do that. Okay. Kettleness, can I do Kettleness Graveyard? Nope, it's not giving me anything specific. Ooh. That's spooky. I like that. Cool. I don't know if these are actually it, but there are cool pictures of graveyards with like a broken down abbey in the background, just like the ones I showed you. And then like a ghost in the windows, cool image. Spooky though, but it's also funny. So she did it again, and this might just be like an older way of speaking, but it's like, where did it go? There's a big graveyard, all full of tombstones. Kind of what a graveyard is. And then, like, her next slide, this is the nicest spot in Whitby. Like, okay, I do get it. I do like the vibes of a good graveyard. I'm with you there. But she doesn't seem, like, super goth and spooky. And so it seems odd that, you know, a regular lady in England is just like, a graveyard is the nicest spot in all of what did she say it was? The nicest spot in Whitby. And I guess she's just saying because, you know, it has a nice view, but still, it is a graveyard. And so that should, I think for most people who don't like the spooky like I do, it being a graveyard takes down its points. I will be curious, since nobody's here for the actual stream, when you watch the VOD, do you like the vibes of a graveyard or not? Would you be inclined to be like, yeah, this is the nicest spot in my town? Or would you be like, no, the fact that it's a graveyard takes down the nice points of it? Okay, it descends so steeply over the harbor that part of the bank has fallen away. Some of the graves have been destroyed. In one place, part of the stonework of the grave stretches out over the sandy pathway far below. There are walks with seats beside them through the churchyard. People go and sit there all day long, looking at the beautiful view and enjoying the breeze. I shall come and sit here very often myself and work. Indeed, I am writing now, my book on my knee, and listening to the talk of 3 old men who are sitting beside me. They seem to do nothing all day but sit up here and talk. So I don't know if she means, like, book as in her journal right now, or if she means, like, she is writing a novel. The harbor lies below me, with, on the far side, one long granite wall stretching out into the sea, with a curve outwards at the end of it, in the middle of which is a lighthouse. A heavy sea-wall runs along outside of it. On the near side, the sea-wall makes an elbow crooked inversely, and its end, too, has a lighthouse. Between the 2 piers, there's a narrow opening into the harbor, which then suddenly widens. Do you guys get a clear picture from that? Because I don't. I'm gonna sit down. So, long granite wall. I assume granite is just natural wall. Stretching out to the sea with a curve outwards at the end of it. Okay, yeah, so little peninsula type thing. Okay, on the middle of it's a lighthouse. Alright. A heavy seawall runs along the outside of it. I don't know what that means. Does that mean the lighthouse is, one of those things where it's, like, in the middle of the sea and it's just, like, on a rock, but it just said that it was in the peninsula? Is it talking about the side of the peninsula that's facing the sea? That's the seawall. And then, like, it makes an elbow crooked inversely, but you did say it curved outwards. So, which way is it curving? And then it has another lighthouse, but I thought you were talking about where this lighthouse is. And then between 2 piers, don't know where they are, there's a narrow opening into the harbor, which suddenly widens. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what the image is. It is nice at high water, but when the tide is out, it is nice at high water, but when the tide is out, it shoals away to nothing. There's merely the stream of the Esk, running between banks of sand, with rocks here and there. Outside the harbor, on this side, there rises for about half a mile a great reef, the sharp edge of which runs straight out from behind the south lighthouse. At the end of it is a buoy with a bell, which swings in bad weather, and sends in a mournful sound on the wind. They have a legend here that when a ship is lost, bells are heard out at sea. I must ask the old man about this. He's coming this way. I'm just getting the sound. I don't know if it's correct, but the ding, ding, ding. And so, like, buoys do that, if I'm thinking correctly. And so they would ding whether the ship is lost or not. Maybe I am too tired to do this because I keep getting confused by stuff that maybe is simple. He's a funny old man. He must be awfully old. His face is all gnarled and twisted like the bark of a tree. He tells me that he's nearly 100, and that he was a sailor in the Greenland fishing fleet when Waterloo was fought. He is, I'm afraid, a very skeptical person. But when I asked him about the bells at sea and the White Lady at the Abbey, he said, very brusquely, "All right, here goes." Give me grace for doing what's probably a bad job at this. Both because the accent itself confuses me and because I'm tired. Alright.
I wouldn't fash myself about them, miss. Them things be all wore out. Mind, I don't say that they never was, but I do say that they wasn't in my time. They be all very well for comers and trippers and the like, but not for a nice young lady like you. Them feet folks from York and Leeds that be always eating cured herrings and drinking tea and looking out to buy a cheap jet would creed aught. I wonder myself who'd be bothered telling lies to them, even the newspapers, which is full of fool talk. I thought he would be a good person to learn interesting things from, so I asked him if he would mind telling me something about the whale fishing in the old days. He was just settling himself to begin when the clock struck 6, whereupon he laboured to get up and said, "I must gang agin words at home now, miss. My granddaughter doesn't like to be kept waiting when the tea is ready, for it takes me time to cram aboon the grease, for there be a many of 'em, and miss, I lack belly timber sairly by the clock.
So, yeah, do you know what cramble aboon the grease and I lack belly timber sairly mean? Because I don't know. I assume this means again, like again words. But yeah, let's just finish. He hobbled away, and I could see him hurrying, as well as he could, down the steps. The steps are a great feature of the place. They lead from the town up to the church. There are hundreds of them. I do not know how many. And they wind up in a delicate curve. The slope is so gentle that a horse could easily walk up and down them. I think they must originally have had something to do with the abbey. I shall go home too. Lucy went out visiting with her mother, and as they were only duty calls, I did not go. They'll be home by this. Alright. He is indeed a funny old man. It is true. And he probably would be less funny if I could just hear him talk and I wasn't having to read it or hear someone else reading it. If somebody who actually has this accent talk, is just saying these words, I'm sure it'd be much more understandable. Kind of insulting that she's like, he must be awfully old. But then again, he does say he's nearly 100, so maybe gets a pass, unless he's being hyperbolic. But I do like the imagery of gnarled and twisted like the bark of a tree. That is a great image. And then talking about, like, he was a sailor in this fleet, long ago. It was cool. He was, fought these great battles. And then it's kind of funny that she sees it as a failing. Well, not necessarily failing, but I'm like, I'm afraid he's skeptical. Like, she doesn't like that. So that's kind of a cool insight into how she thinks she likes, to be skeptical, or she likes the superstitions and stuff. And so I wouldn't fash myself. I don't know what fash means, but this is myself, about them, miss. So I think he's saying, like, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't think about it. Then things be all wore out, I guess, is just, like, their old wives' tales. And I don't say that they never were, but I do say that they didn't exist in my time. So it's like, maybe there were ghosts and bells at sea, but, like, I've never seen them. They've never been around in my time. I don't know what comers and trippers are, but it's like, he seems to be saying, like, it's fine if other people are superstitious, but, like, you're a nice young lady, you shouldn't believe in ghosts. And then feet folks from York, don't know what that means. They always be eaten. The feet folks from Yorks, they always be eaten. Cured herring's fine. Tea is fine. What's wrong with that? Can buy cheap jet with Creedot. Don't know what that means. I wonder myself who'd be bothered telling lies to them. I don't know. Why would you lie to them? I don't know. Why would you lie to anybody? Who are the feet folk? I don't know. In the newspapers, just full of fool talk. I thought he'd be a good person to learn interesting things from. Either, yes, totally, he seems like an interesting man, or he's skeptical and likes to stick with the facts, so maybe that makes him uninteresting. Hard to tell. Whale fishing. Don't know where you got whale fishing from any of that. I guess because he's from, like, the fishing fleet, so maybe he fished for whales. And labored to get up is a great verb, a great way to describe it's hard for him to get up. And okay, he needs to go home. His granddaughter doesn't want to wait for the tea. And then I think he's just saying, like, it takes me time to get home. But then he says there may be many of them. Many of what? Many grees? What's a gree? What's a crammel? What's a boon? And what's a belly timber and Sarely? I think Sarely might be like sorely, but I don't know. It's too bad nobody's here, because, like, if there were ever a time that I could really use your help, it is today. So please feel free, if the VOD, you're watching this in the VOD and YouTube, feel free to comment if you understand better than me. Or else, like, if you're watching the Twitch recording or anything like that, don't hesitate to, like, in the Discord in either stream chat or video discussion. Feel free to let me know if you understand better than me. Steps are fine. She likes her curves. She likes that the land curves and the steps curve. And yeah, if the steps are by the alley, they probably had something to do with the alley. Okay. Alright. July 26th. Mina Murray's journal. 26th July. I'm anxious, and it soothes me to express myself here. It's like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. Cool image, like that. And there's also something about the shorthand symbols that makes it different from writing. Well, it is writing, but as it's not exactly the same writing you might be used to, but it's still writing. I'm unhappy about Lucy and about Jonathan. I had not heard from Jonathan for some time and was very concerned. But yesterday, dear Mr. Hawkins, who's always so kind, sent me a letter from him. I had written asking him if he had heard, and he said the enclosed had just been received. It is only a line dated from Castle Dracula, and says that he is just starting for home. This is not like Jonathan. I do not understand it. It makes me uneasy. Good job, Lucy. Or not Lucy. Good job, Mina. Again, you might be one of the only truly level-headed people. Like, okay, my fiance is not acting like himself, and I'm getting a letter that doesn't sound like him. That is the time to be uneasy. Don't you be thinking, that's a little weird, and moving on. Take it seriously. And then, too, Lucy, although she is so well, has lately taken to her old habit of walking in her sleep. Has Dracula already gotten to her at this point, or is this just kind of a coincidence? Her mother has spoken to me about it, and we have decided that I'm to lock the door of our room every night. Mrs. Westenra has got an idea that sleepwalkers always go out on roofs of houses and along the edges of cliffs, and then get suddenly wakened and fall over with a despairing cry that echoes all over the place. Poor dear, she's naturally anxious about Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit, that he would get up in the night and dress himself and go out, and if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and she's already planning out her dresses and how her house is to be arranged. I sympathize with her, for I do the same. Only Jonathan and I will start in life in a very simple way, and shall have to try to make both ends meet. Mr. Holmwood, he is the Honourable Arthur Holmwood, only son of Lord Godalming, is coming up here very shortly, as soon as he can leave town, for his father is not very well. I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him up to the seat of the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is the waiting which disturbs her. She will be all right when he arrives. Very fair. That is often the case. It is interesting. I didn't think about this the first time I read it. That Jonathan and Mina have been betrothed for longer. And I don't know if it's like they've been betrothed since they were kids, or if they, if it's like with Lucy, there was a proposal and everything. But they have been betrothed for longer. And I think seemingly it's taking them longer for the actual wedding to come than with Lucy, which is kind of interesting. Which is fine. Everybody goes at their own pace, but just a thing I was thinking about. Yeah, so I don't know if she just starts sleepwalking and that maybe makes her a prime target for Dracula, or if she is starting to get bit and that's kind of making her restless and making her sleepwalk. And then, like, I don't think my mom was, so, like, I kind of have a story regarding this line, that I don't think that my mom was, like, a sleepwalker per se. I don't remember her saying that she would, like, get up and do things, but she has told me a story of her, like, I don't remember exactly, like, how old she was, but I think it was, like, early into her marriage to my dad, that one night she was, like, having a nightmare, and, like, got up in her sleep, and got up to the edge of the bed, and she did scream, and I can't remember if she jumped off the bed, too, or if she just screamed, but it does sound terrifying, and so knowing that actual story from my mom, yeah, that is something that could happen. Like, I get that her mom is a worrywart, but yeah, like, she could walk up to the edge of the roof and, you know, make a horrible cry, or potentially fall off of it. So, good to be safe. People are thinking right in this chapter. And again, there's just something so weird about the phrasing of, like, he would get up in the night and dress himself and go out if he were not stopped. It's just like, if he were not stopped is implied. You can just say that he would dress himself and go out. Yeah, so interesting. So I guess Lucy has more, or her family has more money than her and Jonathan, and so she's like, yeah, I'm thinking about my dress and how I'm gonna live too, but I you know, don't have enough money for a really good dress or house or anything, and so we're just gonna, like, be okay with what we've got. Godalming is quite the last name. Also, interesting that Lord Godalming, I assume Godalming is his surname, is not Homewood's surname. That's curious. Alright. July 27th. Mina Murray's journal. 27th July. No news from Jonathan. I'm getting quite uneasy about him. Though why I should, I do not know. But I do wish that he would write, if it were only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever, and each night I'm awakened by her moving about the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold. But still the anxiety and the perpetually being awakened is beginning to tell on me. I'm getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God Lucy's health keeps up. Mr. Homewood has been suddenly called to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets at the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She's a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are a lovely rose pink. She has lost that anemic look which she had. I pray it will all last. I thought the previous one said that he's gone because he has to look up after his dad. As soon as he can leave town for his father's not very well, that's sounding like, and she's counting the moments, sounding like he needs to stay with his dad. And then here it's like new information that he has to stay with his dad. Yeah, what do you mean he was suddenly called? Like, I thought that's where he was. I don't know. Good job. This is the time to be uneasy. I thought that he did write, because he wrote in shorthand, right? So I was gonna say, I thought he did write to Mina, and Dracula was like, the letter to, what's his name? Hawkins, I think? Yeah, the Hawkins. The letter to Hawkins is fine, the letter to Mina is fine, I'll send those out, because you're my dear friend, but what is this horrible scratch of his shorthand? Burning that. But I guess the shorthand was what he wrote to Mina. But I thought there was 2 that survived. I could be wrong. Maybe it was only 1 letter to Hawkins that survived. But I thought there was a letter to Mina that did. But anywho, and I guess it's not really explained why she's staying with Lucy. Maybe because she doesn't have a lot of money, or she doesn't have a house of her own at the moment. And yeah, if you're every night having to sleep in the same room or in the same bed as a sleepwalker, yeah, that would wake you up a lot and would be make you very anxious and have trouble sleeping. she frets about seeing him, but it doesn't touch her looks. It's like, okay, kind of fair. Like, either it's saying, like, she's worried, but, it doesn't show on her face. Like, she doesn't look super worried. Or it's saying, like, yeah, she frets about him, but she's not, like, she doesn't look terrible. She doesn't look terrible. Like, she's not, it says she's a trifle stouter, so, like, I don't know if that has to do with, like, if she's eating too much or too little and stuff like that. So it's like she's still taking care of herself. But again, it is an odd phrasing. It's like, oh, she's worried about not being able to see her fiance. Yeah, it's super fair. But she's still beautiful. It's like, not really the subject, but okay. But I do think it makes sense that it's like, okay, I guess she looked worse before, and the anemic thing is a tick in the column of Dracula's already biting her. But yeah. Pray it will all last. Sorry to disappoint you, Mina. Don't think it's gonna. July 28th. Log of the Demeter. 28th July. 4 days in hell, knocking about in a sort of maelstrom, and then the wind a tempest, no sleep for anyone, men all worn out, hardly know how to set a watch, since no one fit to go on. Second mate volunteered to steer and watch, and let men snatch a few hours' sleep. Wind abating, seas still terrific, but feel them less, the ship is steadier. And I just realized that the fact... So... having the log of the Demeter in the correct timing actually answered my question, because I was wondering, has Dracula already got to her? No, because he's still on the Demeter. These are the notes in real time. It is July 28th. Dracula is still on the Demeter. And so, he hasn't gotten to Lucy yet. It is just her being worried about her fiance right now. 4 days in hell is quite the way to start a journal entry. That is, if you want advice on how to start anything really, start a work of fiction, starting with something like 4 days in hell is a great way to begin. And then, yeah, all very fair. It's just a big storm, nobody slept. Yeah. July 29th, so a couple days. Oh no, 1 day later. July 29th, log of the Demeter. 29th July. Another tragedy. Had single watch tonight, as crew too tired to double. When morning watch came on deck, could find no one except steersman. Raised outcry, and all came on deck. Thorough search, but no one found. Are now without second mate, and crew is in a panic. Mate and I agreed to go armed henceforth, and wait for any sign of cause. We are losing more men now. Yeah, so it came out, and like there's supposed to be people out there, and there's just the steersman. So is that 3 people that are gone now? And I don't remember how many were in total. There were 5 hands, right? And then the captain, and then the cook, and the first mate. I think. Not sure. We've lost the understudy. We've lost the second mate. And again, good job going armed. That is a good idea. And our last entry of the night, July 30th, log of the Demeter, 30th July. Last night, rejoiced we are nearing England. Weather fine, all sails set. Retired, worn out, slept soundly. Awaked by mate telling me that both man of watch and steersman are missing. Only self and mate and 2 hands left to work the ship. Okay, so self, mate, two hands, and so that's already 4. And there was both men of the watch and steersmen. Three. And so then there was the cook as well, and 3 more hands. I'm not sure. So they at least got some sleep this time, but then everybody's gone. So at this point, it starts to... I think that this is just an issue of, like, he's just having to jot down the basics and stuff, so that's fair. But now it feels like maybe he's a little underreacting. And so he's still level-headed, he's still doing a good job, but at the same time, it's like, everybody's going missing. Like, you really need to be proactive about this. Like, you don't just need to be like, oh, wow, there's only... What do we say? There's only 4 people left. That's a little weird. Like, you need to be freaking out at this point. But anywho, but still remains nice and exciting. So yeah, things are really picking up speed. And I think this is the first month that we have had no Jonathan. I think it's because he just got out, if I remember correctly. That the next entry is going... I think the next entry about Jonathan is going to be a letter he receives... that Mina receives from him, that he got out and he was, like, in a hospital, and the nurse is like, he kept calling for you. So I don't remember when that is. I'm guessing it's probably gonna be in August. But I think Homeboy is, like, running from the castle and sick for July. But yeah, so exciting stuff. We're learning about Seward and Mina and her old man friends, and what's going on in the Demeter. All good stuff, except my troubles with the accents. Funny thing is, I basically... that accent is, like, one of my least favorite parts of the book, just because I can't understand what's being said, and it doesn't sound good. And then in the log of the Demeter, I think that's also supposed to be an accent, which I think I also did badly on, but that's, like, one of my favorite parts of the book. I might, once we get to August 8th, when the log is actually supposed to be in there, I might, like, look up what the accent is supposed to be. My guess would be Russian, because I think Petrovsky, that name sounds Russian. And so I'll look up what it's supposed to be, and then maybe try and do that accent and reread it all in chronological order when she finds the newspaper article. I'm not sure. Feel free to weigh in if that's something you'd be interested in or not. But anywho, a good time. A good little stream. I'm very happy I was able to do this. I wanted to do this earlier. I wanted to do it on July 31st, but stuff got in the way. But I feel much better. My heart is more settled now that I have successfully done this. And like I said, we'll see what happens in August, if there's too many entries to wait until the end of the month, or if I'm going to do that after all. We'll see. But yes, I hope you've enjoyed our time with Drac today. It is certainly time for me to go to bed. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.